Check, check, 1, 2, 3. Alright, looks like we are live. It is officially 8 o'clock, which means it's time for the Evan Z Guitar Hang number 3. How's everyone doing? Hold up in their houses? I'll wait a few minutes to let some people trickle in before we begin. How about a blues? Okay, it's been about 5 minutes, so let's get started. Well, hope you guys are doing just fine in your houses and staying busy, doing nothing, watching Tiger King. I'm stuck on Game of Thrones currently, season 3, so I've got a while to go before I will give any of my TV time to Tiger King. But it is tempting. Okay, so just trying to think about what to talk about today. So many things to talk about, and it's been fun. I've been working on, I've been teaching a lot of students via Zoom, and so I got a lot of ideas percolating in my head. I think it's probably worth talking about keys a bit. I think it's, for the guitar, having a basic understanding of keys combined with the main shapes of the guitar proves a really powerful tool. The guitar is an interesting instrument in the sense that if you have a basic foundation, you can do a lot of damage, whereas with other instruments it's probably, well, I know it's much more difficult to kind of gain some steam, particularly if you have a natural musical inclination. So for those of you who don't know, most any song that you'd hear on the radio, say, is in a key. And so for those of you who don't know what a key is, you've probably heard this before. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. What I just sang for you there is a major scale. So a major scale is one of, so the one I just played was C major. That's one of 12 different major scales or keys. You can use those two phrases synonymously, that we have in music. And a major scale is a pattern that outlines a group of notes that create, well, essentially that pattern that we use to build keys off of. And I'll dig into that idea a little bit more. So wherever I plug in this pattern, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, wherever I start that pattern, this time I'm starting on C, it defines the key I'm in. So if I start on C and I play that pattern, I get the key of C. The pattern is this, which your starting note, whatever your starting note is, you move up a whole step, which on the guitar is 2 frets. That's a D note. Then another whole step. And then a half step, which is F, and a whole step, another whole step, and then half step. And you're back to the beginning. And you can keep repeating that. Okay, so wherever I start that pattern, again, that pattern was a whole step. So you have your starting point, and then a whole step from there, a whole step above that, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half. 2 holes, half, 3 holes, half. 2 holes, half, 3 holes, half. If you remember that, you can find out what notes are in any key. And it's worth, again, I think I've said this before, but the 5 main keys you really want to get to know and be familiar with as a guitar player is C, A, G, E, and D. I say it in that order because C, A, G, E, and D spells caged. So it's just an easy way to remember that. Those 5 keys are the 5 main keys you're going to play in on the guitar. So again, I just played that C major scale. I started on a C note, and I followed the pattern. The notes that I got there were C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and back to C. And so going back again to that idea, every song you hear on the radio is framed within a key. And if I find that it's helpful to understand keys as a guitar player, I've heard a number of people suggest to me, who are naturally creative people, that they feel music theory will hinder their ability to be creative. And I understand that impulse, and there is a certain kind of truth to that, but it's more about where you frame your understanding of music theory. If you always can remember that it's just, it's kind of like language, right? If you can understand that language at the end of the day, it's just making sounds, and that language has a number of facets to them rather than just the word, right? The way that you say a word in the context that it fits in a sentence. So everything surrounding the word influences the meaning of a word. It's the same thing with music. Understanding keys can unlock for you, particularly those of you who are interested in writing music, and for those of you who want to just better understand music and learn faster. The really, even if you don't want to write music, understanding how keys work and the pattern, it's really just a pattern, will help you see the pattern much more clearly within anything that you're learning. The more you can see the pattern, I kind of explain music theory like this. It's like a mosaic or a big puzzle. And the more pieces you have of understanding, you kind of see the bigger picture of what music is really doing. And it's really helpful. So, okay, key of C. Let's start there. So the key of C is unique, and the reason that I use it as an example is because it's the one key that has no sharps or flats. All other keys have sharps or flats within them. So say if you can visualize a piano right now, obviously there's 2 kinds of keys, right? There's the white keys and the black keys. All the white keys are the natural notes, which if you just were to play all the white keys on the piano, you'd just be playing in the key of C. All of those black notes are the sharp notes. So it's worth noting, if you get 2 things today from this stream, I want you to remember the pattern of the major scale. Just memorize it. 2 holes, then a half, 3 holes, then a half step. That's your pattern. Wherever you start the pattern and you plug it in, that's the key you're in. And it'll perfectly line up with the sharps and flats of whatever key that you're trying to figure out. So if you start on G, for example, and you play that pattern, G, whole step up to A, whole step up to B, a half step up to B. Quick little note there, there's only 2 notes in music, like if you're going back to the piano idea, right? And if you can visualize it, there's 2 black keys, then a set of 3. 2, 3, 2, 3. In between the E and the F and the B and the C, there's no black key, and that's because there's no sharp in between, no sharp or flat in between B and C and E and F. That's universal in Western music, so it's the same thing in guitar. This is an E note. This first fret here, that's an F note. I'm going to make sure you guys can see me okay. I'm just realizing I'm talking. I might be out of the frame. Yeah, E and then F. And here's B and then C. All other notes have a sharp or flat in between them. So Where was I here? Oh, going back to the key of G. So if I plug the pattern in and I started on G, I have G, whole step up to A, whole step up to B, half step to C, whole step to D, whole step to E, whole step to F sharp, and then G. If I played F, the pattern would not be right. I would be in the key of C essentially because I played all natural notes. You notice G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. That's the key of C. F sharp defines that we're in a different key. So in the key of G, we'd say we have one sharp. It's the key of F sharp. We can talk more about the different keys later, but right now I'd just like to talk more about how any song. Again, there's exceptions to this rule. More complex songs will have a number of key changes within it, so you can journey into different keys within one song. For the most part, particularly if you're listening to the radio, those songs are staying in one key and one key alone. So we have our pattern, right? So the two things I wanted you to remember, between E and F, B and C, no sharp or flat. If you remember that and you remember the pattern of the major scale, you can figure out the notes in any key. Now, let's go a little bit further into that pattern. Okay, so we have the major scale, and those notes comprise the different keys that we have, depending on what starting note we have. Now, once we know that, we can actually figure out which chords belong natively, or the musical term is diatonically. It means diatonically means contained within the key, the notes within the key. We can find out what chords are within each key if we just learn how to build chords and then plug that in to the keys natural or notes. So if we start with C, again, the reason we do C is, or I'm using that as example, is because it's all the natural notes. We're not dealing with any sharps or flats. So let's take this a step further. We're talking about now building chords. An easy way to think about building chords, there's a couple of things we should know, but primarily if we know the notes inside of a key, so taking C for example, and we want to start building the chords inside of that key, we can use the notes inside of that key to build our chords using what we call a triad. So if you've heard do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, many of you might have also heard, this is like a vocal exercise, da 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 da. And what they're doing there is just outlining what we call a triad. A triad is how we build chords. So if we were to take that C scale, C major scale, and we started on C, and we wanted to build the C chord, the name of the chord is always the first note in a chord, right? A chord is 3 or more notes combined. So if I'm building a C chord, I know that my first note to make up a C chord is a C note, and then I stack in thirds 2 above that note. So I like using my hand. I feel like it's really easy to help me build chords using my hand. So thumb, this is C. I skip D, and I add F. I'm not flipping you off. I'm sorry, C, D, E. E is our third. I skip F, and I have G. C, E, G. C, E, and G. Anytime I play a C, E, and G together, no matter how many C, E, and G's I have together, I could have 100 of them together, it would still be one big fat C chord. So on a piano, if you play a C, E, and a G together, C chord. Guitar, you bang rocks together and it's C, E, and G, C chord. On a guitar, if you play a C chord, those first notes, 1, 3, 5, 3, 1, that's C, E, G, E, C. If I go through all of the notes of this chord, it would be E, C, E, G, C, E. So I have 6 notes that I'm playing on the guitar. There's 2 C's here. I have 2 or 3 E's, and I have this one G here. So it's just those 3 notes. I could just play those 3 notes and I'd still have a C chord. So when I'm now going back to the idea of understanding, okay, so I'm talking about the key of C, and I just built my first chord, and I used it using the notes inside of the key of C. C, E, and G. Okay, so that's what we call the one chord of a key. So the one chord of every single key is the name of the key we're in. So we're in the key of C. My one chord in the key of C is referencing the first note of the key, and that chord is always a major chord. Then if we step to the second note in any key, now we're talking about the key of C, so the second note, just go up the alphabet, A, B, C, D. If we build a triad starting off of D, we get a D minor chord. Every single key, the second chord, based off of the second note in the key, meaning the second note of its major scale, is always going to be minor. So let's do our little finger trick again. D, skip E, F, skip G, and A. D, F, and A. Anytime you play a D, F, and an A together, like here, common D minor shape is here, right? This is D, A, D, D minor. Now, if I played, that works together, right? If I played C to D major, it would still work, but you're actually moving outside the key because, check it out, I play D minor here, my first finger on the first fret of the first string. If I move that up to the second fret, that's an F sharp. F sharp is not in the key of C. Remember, the key of C has no sharps and flats, so I'd be jumping out of the key. And it's not that it's necessarily wrong to do that, but you should know what you're doing, right? So D minor, that's our 2 chord. 2 chord, again, is always minor, whatever key you're in. Okay, let's check out the third chord of our key. So C, D, E. If we build a triad off of E using the notes in the key of C, which is all the natural notes, keeping it easy, my first note is E. I skip F, and then I have G. I skip A, and I have B. E, G, and B makes an E minor chord. E minor is the 3 chord of the key of C. Again, in every single key, our 3 chord, based off the third note of that major scale, is always going to be a minor chord. So, okay, that's our 3 chord. Let's go to the 4 chord. C, D, E, F. Building a triad off of F, starting on F. F, skip G, A, skip B, and C. F, A, and C. Anytime you play an F, A, and C together, F, F, A, C. Here's F, C, F, A, C, F. That's 6 notes, but they're all F, A, and C. I could just play F, A, C. It's our 4 chord. A 4 chord in any key is always a major chord. Let's go to the 5. C, D, E, F, G. I build a triad starting on G using the notes in the key of C, all the natural notes. G, skip A, B, skip C, and D. G, B, and D. G, B, D, G, D, G. That's the 5 chord. A 5 chord in every single key is always a major chord. Let's go to our 6 chord. C, D, E, F, G, A. Let's build a chord off of A using all the natural notes. A, skip B, C, skip D, E. A, C, E. A, C, E builds us an A minor chord. A, E, A, C, E. That's an A minor voicing, the one we all know and love. I could just play those 3 though. Anytime you play an A, C, and E together, no matter the instrument, that's a minor chord. So, every 6 chord, again, just a reminder, when I say 6, I'm talking about the 6th scale degree of whatever key I'm in. I'm in the key of C. Remember, whatever key I'm in, that's always the 1st scale degree. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is C, D, E, F, G, A. Every single 6 chord in every major key is a minor chord. And then how about the last one? This is a weird one. One that a lot of people won't use, but it's worth knowing and you should use it. C, D, E, F, G, A, B. If we build a triad starting off of B using the notes in the key of C, we have B, we skip C, we have D, we skip E, and then we have F. B, D, and F. B, D, and F makes this weird chord that we call a minor 7 flat 5 or half diminished chord. Has a lot of tension in it. You're usually going to find a chord like that in jazz tunes, maybe classical music. I'm not going to see that as much in pop. But a great chord. You can substitute the 7th chord, or I should say you can substitute the 5 chord, G in the key of C, for the 7th, and it'll give you kind of the same function as what we'd call that, but with a little bit more tension, a little more drama. Okay, so review. C, we're in the key of C, 1st chord, C, major. Whatever key you're in, the 1st chord is always going to be major. 2 is D minor, always going to be minor, whatever key you're in, the 2 chord. 3, E minor, always going to be minor, whatever key you're in, the 3 chord. 4, major, same thing. 5, major, 4, major, F major in the key of C. 5, G major, always major, whatever key you're in. 6, A minor. 7, B diminished. That pattern goes for every single key. That's why when you put a capo on, and you can play the same patterns of, say, the shapes in the key of C, but effectively you're actually playing in a different key. That's because that pattern stays the same whatever key you're in. So let's put this to practical use, right? Let's play a song using the shapes of the key of C, but actually play in the key of G. So if we wanted to do that on the guitar, we would put our capo on the 7th fret. So here on the 7th fret. And so here's C. So even though I'm playing a C shape, I'm actually playing a G chord. G, B, D, G, B. I'll give you proof. Sounds the same, right? With just a different voicing is what we would call that. So I can use that same pattern. So check this out. I'll play Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. So I just played C, the country version of Amazing Grace, F chord, C, then to G. Okay, so that was a 1-4-5 progression. Meaning, I played in the key of effectively of C on the guitar, the shape of C, and I'm using a capo, so I'm actually in the key of G. But it's like I'm playing in the key of C when I use my shape. So I use C, F, and G. In the key of C, that's the 1, 4, and the 5. Now if I take my capo off and I play actually in the key of, or the actual shapes of the key of G in the guitar, and playing in the key of G, and I just plugged in that same number system. So if I'm in the key of G, G is 1, what would 4 be? G, A, B, C, 5 would be D. Here's the Amazing Grace again, the country version. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound, saved a wretch like me. It's like a country Bob Dylan. Same key in my voice, but a different timbre on the guitar. Here, one more time, I'll put it back up to the 7th fret. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound, saved a wretch like me. Hopefully that makes some sense. I'm going to go check out how we're doing on the chat right now. It doesn't look like we have any chats right now. But if any of you guys have some questions, we've got a few viewers. I would love to hear from you. If I don't hear from you, I'm just going to keep going, and I'll talk about some of the other keys. Okay, so I'll wait and see if we get anything. So we talked about the key of C, and briefly talked about translating it into the key of G. Let's just keep going with those 5 keys we talked about earlier. Remember the name Cage, C-A-G-E-D. Let's go to... Let's stay in the key of G. Matter of fact, let's actually stay... I think the best way to do this. Let's just use this same example in the key of G. I think that's probably the best way to go to it, just to kind of hopefully hammer this point home. So, and let me take this flipping vest off. I'm getting warm up in here. It's getting intense. Okay. Key of G. Key of G is very close to the key of C. They share all the same notes except for one. Again, I talked about that earlier. F sharp. G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. And because of that one different note, we're going to have some chords that are similar to the key of C and some chords that are different. Let's talk about them. So let's start with our one chord, G. We already talked about this one in the key of C. It's the 5 chord in the key of C, but now we're in the key of G, so it's our 1 chord. G, B, and D. You already know what it is. It's a major chord. 2 chord, G, A. Remember, our musical alphabet ends at G and returns to A. There's no H unless you're in Eastern Europe. Their H is B, if I remember correctly, which is weird. A. Let's build our A chord in the key of G. Well, A, skip B, C, skip D, and E. A, C, E. Same thing as the key of C, natural note, so it's an A minor again. 2 chord is always a minor chord, whatever key you're in. 3 chord, G, A, B, B minor, B, D, F sharp, not F natural, right? Because we're in the key of G. Any note that or any chord that we're building in the key of G has to use the notes within the key of G. That's what gives us our different chords. Remember, if we go back to the key of C, when we built a chord off of that B, we had a B, D, F, all the natural notes. So we had this weird half diminished chord, or half diminished minor 7 flat 5. But in the key of G, it's our 3 chord and it's a B minor. this guy here. Or this. I'm playing it that way. It's B minor 7, but to me it's tomato, tomato. Okay, 4 chord. G, A, B, C. Well, we already did that one, right? C, E, and G. Key of C. That was our 1 chord. Now it's our 4 chord. 5 chord. G, A, B, C, D. D. Skip E, F sharp. Key of G, right? G, skip G, and A. D, F sharp, and A. Remember in the key of C, our 2 chord was D minor, which was D, F, and A, but now we're in the key of G. Our 5 chord, always going to be major, so what actually makes it major is that F sharp. And we use the F sharp because we're in the key of G. So, listen, if I used D minor, it'd sound really funky, right? Amazing grace, how sweet the sound, saved a wretch like me. That ain't right. Me. There we go. F sharp, very important, right? Okay. G, A, B, C, D, E. 6 chord is always minor. We already built this one in the key of C. It was our 3 chord. E minor, E. Skip F. G. Skip A, B. E, G, and B. E minor is our 6 chord in the key of G. And then finally, our last weird chord, the F sharp diminished. The seventh scale degree in every single key, which we can build our last chord off of, is always going to be that weird half diminished or minor 7 flat 5. Those are synonymous terms. So F sharp, skip G, A, skip B, and C. F sharp, A, C. Remember in the key of C, we didn't have an F sharp, so we had F, A, and C, and that was our 4 chord. Now in the key of G, we have F sharp, it's our 7th scale degree. We have F sharp, A, and C. So we have this here. Little side note, anytime you see this chord, minor 7 flat 5 or half diminished chord, it's generally a precursor to a chord, a 7th chord, 1/4 above it. Now, if that sounds like it's confusing, I'm sorry. F sharp minor 7 flat 5, B7 leads to E minor. Ooh, I just got a question from Mr. Kevin. Thanks for the question, brother. How would you play that F sharp minor half diminished? Well, I just showed you it, so maybe that was a little delayed on my part. Yes, here's a great voicing for Mr. F sharp 7, F sharp minor 7 flat 5. It's essentially an A minor that you just are putting, placing a finger on the 2nd fret of the low 6th string. Another voicing you could use is right here. I really like this one. It's kind of like you're taking, well, it's really like a D shape. You're moving back and then you're removing this part, if that makes any sense. 1st finger, 4th fret, 4th string, and then bar, if you can, with your 3rd finger, the top 3 strings of the guitar. Another good one is here. It's the same one I used for the B minor 7 flat 5. So that's 1st finger, 7th fret, 5th string, 3rd finger, 8th fret, 4th string, middle finger, 7th fret, 3rd string, and then pinky, 8th fret, 2nd string. Great chord. Here's another weird one. So I played. This is a what we call a third inversion. So I have the seventh note of the chord in the bass. I have my middle finger and the 7th fret of the 5th string. Then I have my ring finger on the 7th fret of the 4th string, first finger on the 5th fret of the 3rd string, and then pinky on the 7th fret of the 2nd string. Okay, so just to go down that road a little bit farther, whenever you, like I said, play minor 7 flat 5 chords, are usually used as the second chord that leads you to a minor chord. So if you're playing in a minor key, like a minor blues, for example, I'm play one in the key of A minor. Or for this, we were using F sharp minor 7 flat 5, so let's play in the key of E minor. That's where we're going to use that. So E minor, F sharp minor 7 flat 5, B7 to E minor. Super cool, right? Moody. 7 chords are really fun to play with. It's kind of the forgotten chord. It's still very usable. Like I said, you can use it as a substitute for a 5 chord. So let's go back to the Amazing Grace example, and this time I'll sing it in the key of C, so it's not... No, I'll keep it in the key of G. Wait. Yes, key of G. So I was playing Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. So I was using a 1-4-5 progression in the key of G, G chord, C back to G, stay in the G, then read the D chord. That chord right there, if I wanted to get funky with it, I could use the F sharp minor 7 flat 5 as a substitution for that 5 chord there. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. It's a little strange, but who cares, man? It's, there's no rules here, right? Okay. Let's actually go down that road a little bit, talking about ways to substitute chords. This is a discussion that could go on for a very long time. Still one that I'm learning about, okay? But some diatonic substitutions. So some people might disagree with me, but I generally tend to think of the chord functions like this. The 1 chord and the 4 chord and the 5 chord are major chords in a key. They're used the most commonly, particularly like if you're playing pop music, worship music. They're kind of happier, more uplifting chords. The minor chords, different vibe. So your 1, 4, and 5 in any key you're in, say we're in the key of C, C, F, and G. Those are your major chords. The 2, 3, and the 6, which would be D, E, and A, are the minor chord of functions in your key, and then you have the 7th diminished, which kind of acts as the same tool as your 5 chord. So I find that if I'm writing a song or even playing a song, say I want to do a cover and I want to bring a different mood to, in particular, the 1, 4, and the 5. So for the 1 chord, flip it with the 6 chord, see how it sounds. Let's try that with Amazing Grace. Let's just see what happens. See if this idea has any salt. So again, Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. how sweet the sound. You saved a wretch like me. That was pretty cool, actually. That was just total serendipity because I didn't know how it was going to turn out. But like I was saying, generally the 6 chord can substitute for the 1 chord and bring a whole different mood to what's going on. Let's try the same thing for the 4 chord. So if we're playing, again, that same example, Amazing Grace, G chord to C chord, back to G. So C chord's our 4 chord. Saved a wretch like me. I find that the 4 and the 2 chord can be substituted fairly innocuously, to use a fancy word, without much damage. Let's try it out. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Also really like that, right? Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Let's substitute all of them. So from 1, 4 to 5 to 6, 2 to 7, if that made any sense. So again, our original chords were G, C, and D, 1, 4, 5 in the key of G. If we're in the key of G and we substitute it for like the minor, sadder version, moodier version, it would be 6, E minor, 2, A minor, and 7, F sharp, diminished, or half diminished, to speak more accurately. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now found. Was blind, but now I see. That's some options, right? How are we doing on time here? Any other questions from the gallery? If so, please let me know. Would you like me to journey into a different key and do this same example? As I wait for an answer, I'll just go ahead and do that. Let's journey to the key of D. Another key out of our 5, C, A, G, E, D. D chord. So the key of D is D, D, E, F sharp, A, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D. So the key of D has 2 sharps. F sharp and C sharp. Okay, just got another message from Kevin. That's crazy. So with A. Yes, technically yes, probably could work with any melody, but it's always just going to be different. So it's one of those things that you may have to shift a melody a little bit, but generally it's going to work. And the reason is, if you just compare the notes inside of the chord, they're similar. Going back to that discussion again earlier, so talking about the key of G, and we were substituting E minor for it, right? So G is G, B, and D. That's the notes inside of the chord. In E minor, the notes inside of an E minor are E, G, and B. So the only note that you're missing is D. If you added a D to the E minor chord, it makes an E minor 7, which you probably play most of the time anyways when you play an E minor chord, which is just one finger. And so if you're playing a song and you're singing a melody over a certain chord, generally the main notes in that melody are contained within the chord, and that's why you're using that chord to play over that part of the melody, right? For example, we substituted the C chord which is the 4 chord for the 2 chord, A minor. The notes in the C chord are C, E, and G. And the notes in the A minor chord are A, C, and E, already sharing 2 of the same notes inside of that chord. If I add a G to it, It's an A minor 7 once again, which you probably play most of the time. Here's A minor, here's A minor 7. So that's why they work so well interchangeably. Hope that makes sense. And let's go back to the key of D. So, key of D, D, E, F, G, A, B, C sharp, D. So we plug in that same formula. Let's talk about the 1, 4, and 5 first. It's our major chords. D, E, F sharp. G is our 4 chord. A is our 5 chord. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. I gave a lot there. Let's just go back to the beginning though. I was having too much fun. D, G, A, and D. 1, 4, and 5. What would our minor chords be in the key of D? D, E. E is our 2 chord. E minor. We already know that one. F. F sharp minor. So we had in the key of G, F sharp minor 7 flat 5, or F sharp minor half diminished. In the key of D, it's F sharp minor, which is kind of an annoying chord to play quote unquote correctly. Excuse me, a lot of the times I use this substitution. I love the way that sounds. This is an F sharp minor 11 chord. So that's just playing these 2 notes here on the 2nd frets of the 3rd and 4th string. I add either my thumb or my middle finger with this voicing using my 3rd and 4th fingers to the 2nd fret of the 6th string, and I get kind of a more shimmery version of the 3 chord. Depends on the context. A lot of times too, if you're playing if a song asks for a 3 chord, you can play what's called a first inversion of the 1 chord in lieu of it. That's what I do. A lot of times you hear that all the time in songs. D, E minor, F sharp minor, 2 chord, G. Do that same thing using that first inversion, meaning inversion means, so generally when you play a chord, the lowest note of the chord, or the bass note of the chord, is the name of the chord. So playing a D chord, if I keep the 4th open string as my lowest note, then I'm in what we call root position. That's the standard way to play a chord. If the lowest note in the chord is a different note inside of that chord, then it's an inversion. So for this example here, I have my thumb playing the F sharp on the 2nd fret of the 6th string, which is the 2nd note in the chord of D. So I'm in what we call the first inversion. It's think of it the first iteration or first scrambling way to scramble the notes inside of that chord, and so you're putting that 3rd on the top. If it was a 2nd inversion, D, E, F sharp, G, A. That's our 2nd note in the chord, right? D, F sharp, A. If A is on the top, then it would be in 2nd inversion. Okay, so I was going to show you that progression using, let's go back just to hear with the 3 chords. So E minor, F sharp minor, G. Now I'll do that same thing, but instead of the 3 chord, I'm going to use the 1 chord in first inversion. The reason that works so nice, particularly in that situation where I'm going to the 4 chord after the 3 chord, is to get that nice bass movement. My bass is voice leading. It's a term we use musically to talk about notes that are encouraging you to go to a certain place. So this, whenever a note, you're giving a half step approach to a new note, you'd think of that as voice leading. It's like it's right next to it, so it just wants to go to that next place, right? You get more complex versions of that in jazz, but you can even use that, and you should use that within any context. Okay, and then our sixth chord in the key of D is B minor. I don't know if I talked about this before. A lot of people use this shape for B minor. That's fine. I never really use it. It's too blocky for me, depending on the context. I like to use this guy, which is actually a B minor 11 chord, because I have B, then I have the third, D, then I have A, which is the seventh in the chord. We can talk about what that means maybe next time. D, and then I have E, B minor 11. So that's fine. That's fine. This is B minor 7. B minor is a weird chord to get used to. It's a weird transition. I remember back in the day really having to work to get that one together, but you use it all the time. That's worth getting that chord together. Okay. Our seventh is the C sharp minor 7 flat 5, or C sharp half diminished, which I'll use that voicing I showed you earlier, but just this is a good voicing to know, because whatever note this is with this voicing defines which minor 7 flat 5 it is. So we call that, this is another important term as guitar players to know, is the root of a chord. Because the guitar is such a shape-based instrument, if I play chords that don't involve any open strings, as long as I know what the root is and where that root is, wherever I move that note and what that note is, it becomes that same type of chord. So this is a minor 7 flat 5 voicing, and if whatever note this is defines what kind of minor 7 flat 5 it is. This is a C sharp, so it's a C sharp minor 7 flat 5. If I moved it up a half step to D, D minor 7 flat 5, E flat minor 7 flat 5, E minor 7 flat 5, F minor 7 flat 5, so on and so forth. So again, that was first finger on the 4th fret for the C sharp minor 7 flat 5, 5th string, ring finger, 5th fret, 4th string, middle finger, 4th fret, 3rd string, and then pinky on the 5th fret of the 2nd string. And I think that's about it for today for me. So let's just do a brief recap of our lesson today. The main things I want you to take away, if you don't already know it, is the pattern of the major scale. 2 holes, half, 3 holes, and then a half. So you have your starting point, and from that point you can build 2 whole steps up from that, then a half step, then 3 whole steps up from that, and then a half step. Using that pattern, you can figure out whatever key you want. You just follow the pattern and it'll define the key, and the notes inside of it are the notes inside of that key. Remembering that you can use for that key system, and remember it's a 7-note pattern, and you can use numbers to correlate. And the reason you want to use numbers is because you can begin to transcribe to different keys much easier. If you remember, it's all it is a pattern, and it's the same chords, it's the same pattern of chords within whatever key you're in. 1, 4s, and 5s are always major, 2, 3, and 6 is always minor, and 7th is always that weird half diminished. And if there's anything else important, I currently don't remember it. So, thank you all for listening, and thank you for the questions, Kevin. I appreciate you chiming in and just being involved. This is very fun for me. I enjoy it. And so if you think of anyone who might also enjoy this, please let them know. I genuinely want to be a service to any of you aspiring guitar players out there or musicians. If you have any questions, just feel free to message me via social media. I really enjoy talking about this stuff and exploring this stuff with people. The more I teach it, the more my light bulbs turn on in new places, so it's helpful for me too. Okay, guys, stay safe out there, and I will see you next Wednesday. Peace.